Support provided by Walters, Papillon, Thomas, Collins, LLC.
If you consider yourself conservative, okay, just read the conservative columnists like Dan Fagan, okay? Now, if you consider yourself a liberal, Stephanie Grace, okay? But actually, that's a joke. I believe you should read both points of view and decide for yourself. That's what I do, and we tend to be a little tribal in our viewing of the media coverage. If we don't agree with something, we assume, that there's a position being taken. Now, I believe when this election's over that we'll get back to Louisiana values, and I think just a couple of things about Louisiana values. I think we all agree we all love LSU, right? And I think we all agree, hopefully, we love the Saints. And no matter who we pick, we're going to love our governor, right? Okay, that's enough on politics. All right, I was asked to come here and speak about against all odds. I worry it's a little bit of a gambling thought, so I don't want to go there. But I looked around and I said, well, Coach O wasn't being asked, so he must be wanting to talk to me about our success in the newspaper. So if that's what we're here to talk about, let's talk a little bit about that. Like LSU, it's not over yet. LSU has the rest of the season to finish, but right now we're feeling pretty good about what we've accomplished in the last 6+ years with our newspaper. So let's go backwards and try to explain what we did. A lot of times when I do things, it makes no sense to anyone in the room. And then when it's over, everyone in the room gets it, and I look back, it makes no sense to me. So I'm always in this state of confusion about what I did and what I was thinking and where we ended up. So let me just look backwards. I convinced the Newhouse family, which are big-time LSU people, who own the 178-year-old newspaper for 100 years, to sell to a guy from New Orleans who went to Tulane. Okay? Then I had to convince the advertisers and the subscribers to accept us, and spent 2 years, and I went to virtually every public event, Rotary Club, Kiwanis Club, LSU this, LSU that, hanging out with Raising Cane's, and I did everything I could, and it actually worked out, right? So that was step one. New Orleans guy trying to convince the Baton Rouge people that it's okay that we now bought the paper. The second step was I'd have to bring a Baton Rouge paper, go down to New Orleans, and the LSU paper is all about LSU, the Baton Rouge paper, all about Bobby Jindal, and I've got to convince all the advertisers and readers of New Orleans to read a Baton Rouge paper. So obviously, having run for public office, I went to all the Rotary clubs, all the Kiwanis clubs. I went to everything, Tulane and all that. And actually, that worked out. Now, those are two, on the surface, really crazy ideas. Now, the big one was that I had to convince the multi-billionaires who live in New York that own the Times-Picayune for 180 years. No, it's 180 years old. They owned it for decades. To sell to the person that took all their top employees, half of their customers away, that's me, by the way, and do it in less than 8 years, Coach O. And we did that. So that's really the three steps to what we really accomplished here, and I think we can all agree that was all against odds. All the odds were against us. Now, along the way, there were several critics. Should I say maybe the ManShips School of Journalism said this has never been done before. I'm used to critics, but I'm wondering what they're teaching in school, but I thought maybe I can go teach a course if they'll let me go to the ManShips School and encourage these journalists that you can be successful in newspaper. Today we have a really good relationship with the ManShips School, and their students now, at least one of them is being offered an internship with the newspaper. So I think they've come around. In the area of accomplishments, last year we won the first Pulitzer Prize. And equally as prestigious, the Polk Award, which is not as widely known to many people, but that's an equal accomplishment. In July, we merged the 3 city newspapers, the Acadiana Advocate, the Advocate, the New Orleans Advocate with the Times-Picayune. So the 6 months prior to that is a story on its own. A book should be written, because here I am, this little guy in New Orleans, and I'm trying to buy a paper from billionaires in New York. I had one lawyer working for me, kind of speaking for me, and had one lawyer behind me kind of writing down everything we were working on, and I didn't realize they had 14 lawyers on the other side. New York lawyers. They don't come cheap, but you know, one was for real estate, one was for copyright, antitrust, labor. I mean, they wore us out, and every time we agreed to something, the documents would come and it didn't read anything like it. But I stayed on the process. We began in December and we concluded in May, and that was a success. So then we had the job of merging these 2 organizations. And if you read about the papers today, Gannett is buying or being bought and merging with another paper. They announced those things 6 months before they even began the process of merging. We literally announced the deal and closed the deal in 60 days. And of course, I was in Greece for the summer, but our team here did all the work. I think they deserve a big round of applause. Now let me give you a little bit of the statistics, and hopefully no one in the paper fact checks me, because these are just what I believe. But we literally merged the websites. And the websites were, we estimated the combined website audience would be between 5 and 6 million unique visitors within the first month. We had 11 million people on our website. I mean, astronomical. There are not 11 million people who live in the state of Louisiana. We have about 150,000 daily subscribers on our biggest day, which equates to almost 500,000 people, because each household has more than 2 or 3, maybe 4 people in each house. We have probably 500,000 weekly newspapers, and that equates to probably over 1 million to 1.5 million people that are reading our paper. So I would argue so far, so good. Before I open it up to some questions, I'd like to add one more last thought. First of all, to do this, I had to write 2 really big checks. The first one was to the ManShips, the biggest check I've ever written. The second one to the new houses, a big check as well. And so for any of y'all that are worried that I'll ever run for public office, I'm here to say I'm absolutely broke. So I think it'd be a good time now to open up if you have any particular questions. I will tell you that it's been a very engaging process for me, that we, through social media, I'm able to read anything people think of me, the paper, and they think that I'm the one writing all these things. And quite frankly, my English scores, my math scores were nearly perfect. My English scores were nearly 0. So nothing in the paper is actually written by me. And sometimes I like what's there, and sometimes, quite frankly, I totally disagree. But I think our pledge to you was that we would give our writers absolutely more authority and autonomy, because I ran for office and I believed that the reporter knew more about me than the editor or the publisher or anybody else in the process. So anyone want to ask any questions? Yes.
John, could you describe how the 3 papers differ in content? You know, they pretty much alike, or just 10% different, or 50% different, or how do you cater to those 3 different populations?
Okay. One time I had a meeting with my kids and I used a chalkboard and I started explaining all these things, and my kid said, "Dad, is that the way your brain thinks?" So, but it's really simpler than that. Obviously, every market reads LSU. So in Baton Rouge, the LSU story is on the top. Everybody reads the Saints. In the Baton Rouge market, LSU, the Saints are at the bottom, LSU's at the top. The New Orleans market, the Saints are at the top, LSU's at the bottom, and somehow UL falls in the middle. We're able to take shared content and literally, what's different about the newspaper that's different about my other businesses is they meet maybe twice a day. There are meetings with the teams of very professional people, and they sit together and they plan the day, and then I think they do it twice a day, and they plan the stories. But there's a lot of shared content. The good news is you're sharing a story about New Orleans or Lafayette, where the other papers were sharing stories about the Kardashian family in California, which I hope none of you are interested in. But so I think we have a lot of shared content. We have local bureaus. The beauty of our management team is that we have Fred, who runs the operations in Baton Rouge, who's been around with the ManShips family. We have Peter that came from the Times-Picayune culture, and then we have Judy that came to us from the Acadiana and Lafayette culture. So we actually understand each market. We're deeply involved in our communities. We have local writers, obviously local obituaries. Obituaries is one of the few states where people actually live here, grew up here, and unfortunately didn't move here, not like other states like Houston, Texas. The majority of the people don't really care about the obituaries because they don't really know people and their parents and all that. So I think we do a great job of comparing it. Sometimes the editors in Baton Rouge are doing the headlines and they misspell the city of Gretna. I think we've done that twice. I'm surprised I'm the one that caught it. But it's not perfect. There's technology. I'll argue that our team is working harder than they did 10, 20 years ago. And that's true of most businesses because of technology, the need to know things quicker and faster. We have some real smart digital people that are helping with digital. Our digital audience is probably 50 million people a year. That's unbelievable. And if you're an advertiser, don't stop advertising in print, but add a little to your digital, because I believe that before it's all over, everyone's going to find themselves on our website. I don't think you need to be on the billboards of Louisiana and you'll get the audience that you'll get on our website, theadvocate.com, or our other website, NOLA.com. So I think we do a really good job bringing it together. There are other parts of the state. We have huge audiences outside of our print market. So we know that people are reading our content. I mean, I could go backwards and look at some of the big stories. A lot of them are very tragic and hard to live with, like the shootings in Baton Rouge, the floods, Mike the Tiger dying, Coach Miles getting fired. Every time that happens, we might get 2 million people on our website. The hotel in New Orleans crashing, and then the day of the explosion, it's hard to figure out who's cared more about the Saints game or the implosion. There's going to be another implosion, which they'll do in January. So there are weather events, hurricanes, presidential visits, candidates for president visits. All of these days, everyone's going to our website. So it's up to our team to get to the community and say, and we put a paywall on, which every newspaper in the world has a paywall. And those of you that go on our site very regularly that are not print subscribers will have to actually pay for your content. And a lot of times I read comments, I'm not going to name you if you're in the audience, but where people say, well, I didn't like that story, so I'm not going to subscribe to the paper. And I'm thinking, well, you're going to have to subscribe to the internet because you're not going to get it free. Fair is fair.
Thank you, Mr. Jordan. I get the paper in paper, and it's mostly, for me, I guess, a retrospective, because like a lot of people, I read the paper on my phone. And I guess first, thank you, I think, as a well-resourced Louisianian for buying both of these papers and keeping them healthy. I think we have really responsible journalists covering the issues that are important to us. Can you talk to us, I guess, about what the future and the market challenges that you have in a world where, once once 10 years ago, there was a van that threw papers all over my neighborhood. Now there's a little compact car that drops off like 3 papers, and
Yeah.
most of us are seeing it on another platform. How's that going to evolve over time?
And before that, there was a kid on a bicycle who threw the paper. Now, I was one of those kids. You know, everybody views the future and their path to success. I mean, you're talking to a guy that owns a restaurant called Galatoire's. People don't go to restaurants like Galatoire's anymore. But if you go to Galatoire's on a Friday, people are waiting in line from Wednesday. So I would hope that if there is a decline or elimination of print or going to a Sunday only, that we would be the last paper in America to do that, because I think I still enjoy what we do. I think our readers enjoy it. It might cost a little bit more money, but it won't cost any more than your cell phone bill, your cable bill, your Apple bill, and all these things that are on your phone that you're paying. And you could probably eliminate half of them and subscribe to our paper. So I think we're in better shape. We just had a visit from the owner of the Arkansas paper, who owns all of the papers in Arkansas. He has statewide footprint. He has a 20% laptop. He has 20,000 people on their laptop that get the e-edition. And he looked at our paper and said, man, if I had a paper like yours, I never would have gone to digital. So I think a lot of people hastily made cuts and destroyed their papers, and we're trying to fight back continually to provide. We have over 100 journalists. We have over 400 people that are employed, thousands of people. So we're trying to make a model that doesn't give up what we all really enjoy of a newspaper. There's more truth in our paper. Hopefully, to your principles, it's true, it's fair. I think we have some guiding principles as well. But I think people are changing. I think people want the information quicker. So when you get it quicker, it's not as up to date, it's not as accurate. So you're seeing constant updates along the day in stories.
John, before the luncheon, I was proud to introduce you to a fellow Greek person who is our foreign student today. I think we usually introduce them as part of the agenda, but I think we missed that. So I'm going to take this opportunity. This is Eleonora Apostolidi. She's from Krevis, Greece. She is a doctoral student in the LSU School of Music, majoring in piano in the studio of Dr. Willis Baloney. She has an assistantship, which includes collaborative piano work. She left Greece after high school and went to New York, to the State University of New York at Purchase, to their Conservatory of Music. She came then to LSU for her master's degree, and she's now pursuing her PhD. She hopes to pursue a career in academia and to be an active performer and give concerts around the world. I've had a look at her CV. She's won a number of very prestigious international competitions. So I'm very proud to have her as our international guest today.
John, I'm Emily Stitch with the Baton Rouge Area Chamber, and I want to let you know that the Advocate very generously hosted Leadership Baton Rouge for a full day, our September session there, and we toured the facility. It was totally amazing. Your staff was wonderful, and I would encourage Rotarians, if you have not seen the Advocate's facilities there on Riga Road, it's incredible. We have pictures of us in the forests of paper rolls that just blew us away. So I want to thank you for your hospitality. It was great.
Thank you. You know, the ManShips really gave us a beautiful first-class facility, and actually that was probably one of the primary driving forces of us believing we could be successful, because it's one of the finest print facilities in America.
I've been an Advocate subscriber for over 50 years, reading cover to cover every day, the print edition, and if I'm out of town, the e-edition. Look forward to my friend Lanny Keller's column every Wednesday, but sometimes on Thursday or Friday. But I do have one gripe.
If it's only one, I'm great.
And I've written to everybody at the paper about this and haven't gotten a response.
Did you write my wife?
I didn't write you, I didn't have your email. I had Peter's and particularly the sports folks address. And the gripe is referring to an institution that doesn't exist in Louisiana, and that's referring to the institution in Lafayette as UL. It's ULL,
yes.
not UL.
Okay.
There's a UL system, and as much as the people in Lafayette want University of Louisiana, there is no such institution. University of Louisiana in Lafayette, and you refer to the University of Louisiana in Monroe as ULM, but not ULL. That's my point.
Well,
And I'm gonna
I'm not, I was on the Board of Regents when we changed the name, so we should know better. That's one thing I can spell.
Support provided by Walters, Papillon, Thomas, Collins, LLC.